All right, Mr. Evans, ready? Walter?
It's too much trouble using the city computer because if you don't, you get locked down. Right. But if you don't connect to the network of City Hall, when last time your computer been on the network? Got locked out. They had to re-image my whole computer.
You ready, Doc? Good. Ready, guys? Good. I'd like to call to order our utility special district meeting. The date is January 15th, and the time is 5:41 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Vice Chair Chadrick McCoy.
Here.
Board Member Kashava Miller Anderson. Board Member Shirley Lanier. Board Member Glenn Spiritus.
Here.
Ex officio Board Member Mayor Ronnie Felder. City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
Acting District Clerk Deborah Hall is present. District Attorney Don Nguyen.
Here.
District Finance Director Randy Sherman. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you. We have a moment of silence followed by a pledge of allegiance led by Board Member Miller Anderson. Let the record reflect Board Member Lanier is on the dais. Any additions, deletions, substitutions?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You're recognized.
item 2A and 2B, if we can make sure that those items are moved under the regular agenda. It was inadvertently placed under consent and they need to be under the regular agenda.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
You're recognized.
I would like item 3D put under the regular agenda.
Item, which one, Doc?
3D.
That
3D. I don't see a 3D.
is not on the utility district.
When you
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong
Yes, sir.
calendar. Thank you.
Additional additions, deletions, substitutions? Motion to adopt? Move. Any disclosures? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Shirley Lanier.
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy.
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson. Board Member Spiritus.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. All matters considered under consent are considered routine in action to be taken by one motion. If there's no separate discussion of these items, unless the councilperson so requests, in the event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence. Does anyone want to pull an item from consent besides 2A and 2B? Motion to adopt consent? Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, public comment?
Mr. Chair, we do have two public comment cards submitted for submit. The first speaker is Nora Mahoney.
Here. So can we interrupt that? I seriously doubt that they're trying to comment on the minutes. So is it more appropriate that we have them when we have the actual agenda item?
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to ask to see what items they wanted to comment on and then
Miss-
allow for them to.
Ms. Mahoney did want to make a comment about the minutes.
Okay.
Were you changing yours to 7A or 7B? No, not you.
2A and 2B.
2A, 2B, were you, Mr. Mahoney, were you changing your comments to 2A and 2B? It's been moved to the regular agenda. You can talk right now.
I can talk right now.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Mahoney, it's in reference to the minutes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You're recognized. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nora Mahoney, 2120 Broadway and 2135 Broadway, Riviera Beach, Florida. Good evening to everybody. Well, I'm coming to this meeting since 1999. Before the special district was formed, there were consultants, public work, and some of the city councils at that time that they said, oh, we're going to charge you for the wastewater, everything like that. We're going to increase the price for the water so we can create a new water plan.
I'm sorry, we're talking about the minutes for the utility district. We pulled the other item, so we're on public comment utility district minutes. 1A or 1B?
A.
Okay.
So now they're talking about a letter of interest. That's a Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. And it's going to be $147 million. The application for that particular work is going to cost us $100,000. So we're spending more money. Where is the money from everybody who pays the bill and the water bill? Where is the money? Where do you allocate that amount of money that you take from everybody here in the city of Riviera Beach so it can be spent for the water plant like they promises at the time that you form the special district? Where is the money? Do you want me to tell the state to have an audit of this department? Because we paid a lot of money. I pay more money than my house. And everybody else, they're complaining about it. And I didn't know that. I didn't come to the meetings for a certain time. And you have an increase in the water bill. And you're going to have another increase again. So all this money to modernize and expand the water treatment, that was supposed to be talked at the time that you formed your special district. So I would like to know where the money goes. You know, and as you know, we have a lot of senior citizens, people who work, people who retire. Can they survive to pay for the water bill? It's gonna be like we're paying for the hurricane season with the winter insurance. Now, you said the company who's gonna do the work, they are requesting 147 million. We're supposed to have more than 400. At the time that they had that, probably the price was down to build the water plant. And the other thing is that why do we have to pay more? I need to have an audit about that. You know, since the time they promises, they lied to us. So I know that you want to do something good, but hey, time is running and we cannot wait. So hopefully you're gonna place something that is gonna be allocation, expense, and water pay. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
The motion was moved and properly seconded. Board Member Shirley Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chadwick McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chair Lawson, unanimous vote. So, Mr. Chair, we are on the regular agenda, and we do have public comment cards for the next item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed. Resolution number 00125UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, accepting the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District 2024 Water and Wastewater Utility Revenue Sufficiency and Rate Report, adopting revised rates, fees, and charges for water and wastewater utility services provided by the district, incorporating whereas clauses, recognizing customer service classes, adopting revised monthly utility service charges for water and wastewater service, adopting an annual review and adjustment clause, repealing and superseding prior and conflicting resolutions or parts of resolutions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
The Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Randy Sherman, to make this presentation.
Good evening, Randy Sherman, Finance Director for the Utility Special District. Resolution that you have in front of you tonight is for an adoption of new rates for water and sewer for fiscal year 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. The city works with a rate consultant. The city staff does not determine what the rates are. We work with a rate consultant who performs a number of calculations and produces a revenue sufficiency report, which in essence provides sufficient revenues for the city to operate. If you remember in 2023, we did do an interim rate. That interim rate was to provide really a short-term relief dealing with inflationary items at that time. Back in August, the rate consultant was here, made a preliminary presentation at the August utility district meeting. The report was finalized in December and provided to you when received by the city. So tonight, we have the rate consultant here. He will be making a presentation, and then we can take any comments or questions that you may have.
Chair, I would like to ask a question now, please.
You recognize, go ahead.
Mr. Sherman, you said we set interim rates in 2023, and I know that extended over, I think it was 5 years.
It was, correct.
So what we're proposing now is going to supersede that or in addition to?
It's in addition, but we're in the period, the first 2 years have already been implemented. The last 3 years that were adopted in 2023 were to deal strictly with some inflationary, CPI type adjustments. These rates encompass the water treatment plant, which we did not deal with back in 2023.
Okay, so again, is this going to be added on top of those rates? Or is this going to substitute those rates?
The rates that are in the resolution are the new rates. It's not that rate plus 3%. It's the new rates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Introduce yourself, because I can't.
Oh.
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Robert Ory. I'm a Executive Vice President with Raftelis Financial Consultants, and we've been doing your rate evaluations and analyses for you for several years, and especially with this project that's before you today regarding the water plant, et cetera. What I'd like to do for the next 20, 30, 40 minutes is, talk to you about, where we are, what we're seeing, what the proposed rates we think need to be enacted to fund the capital needs of the district or its utility system, and move forward and keep a strong financial position for the utility to attract capital. I look at this as a continuation of that August 22nd meeting that we had, where I came before you and talked about the interim rates that you asked a question on, Councilman. And so I want to present the revised forecast, the customer impacts, rate comparisons, so everyone can see what could be coming in the future. And then after that, we're going to come back and talk about capital improvement fees and those recommendations. That deals more with charges to new development to fund expansion-related capital, and then talk about next steps and action items. Also, as I'm going through the presentation, if you want to ask a question, stop me. That's fine, or you want to wait to the end. Either one works for me. However, it works best for you all too. So if something comes to your mind, like, gosh, I want to ask that question about what I just said, sometimes it's easier to do that than to wait to the end. So by all means, however works best for you all. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that a little better? No, not really. How about a little closer? That's about, there you go. So the rate evaluation, we deem it a revenue sufficiency analysis. And what that component of the study looks at is how much revenue do we need to generate to fund our expenditure needs of the utility. And the expenditure needs of the utility would be operations and maintenance expenses, salaries, chemicals, power, things of that nature. It would also include the payment of debt service on any capital improvements to the system that's financed through long-term debt. It would also include deposits to a renewal and replacement fund for capital reinvestment that affects existing customers. A good example of an R&R or renewal and replacement, I'll call that R&R, replacing meters, replacing lift stations, things of that nature that they reach their useful life. And actually the water plant, although it's a very large facility, has reached its useful life and needs to be replaced. We're going to present the projected fiscal position of the utility based on the implementation of the proposed rates, and talk about recommendations and next steps. The real objective here is to develop a rate evaluation that fully funds the cost of the water treatment plant. I'm going to mention that a lot during this presentation, as you well can imagine. That is the primary driver of the rates. And in doing this, we need to set rates to be able to finance the improvement, to issue bonds to finance it. We've worked with your financial advisor. He's given us his debt implementation plan to fund this program, and we have to have rates in place to issue those bonds and then pay those bonds over time. We also want to fully recover the cost of service. I mentioned that's the debt, O&M, capital improvements, and whatnot. I call that the revenue requirements. If you hear me say that, that's those expenditure needs that rates need to fund. And then developing a rate phasing plan that's going to limit the immediate increase to the customers. I mentioned this last time. I think it's important to mention this again, that the utility is operated or accounted for financial reporting purposes as an enterprise fund. And according to the Government Accounting Standards Board, or GASB, enterprise funds should be used to account for operations that are financed and operated similar to a private business, where the cost of service is primarily funded from rates and charges for that system. The utility system clearly is an enterprise fund. You may see solid waste as an enterprise fund, stormwater utilities as well. But the key is operates generally as a business for the cost of providing service funded through user fees. The full faith and credit of the city or the district, ad valorem taxes, whatnot, is not pledged to this utility right now. We receive no secondary or contributions from the general fund on this, which is typical of an enterprise fund. So I wanted to mention that 96% of our revenue comes from rates. That's what the primary source of our revenue is 96% of that. We have other fees we charge and whatnot, but most of it comes from rates. Randy mentioned that back in October, or back in 2023, excuse me, we had an interim rate adjustment, and we brought that forward to the commission, and you adopted Resolution 21-23 UD that set rates in effect for 5 years. You've implemented 2 of those. The first 2, which were the larger increases, you can see them on the screen. They're at the bottom there on that table. And the first year was effective October 1st, 23. It raised water rates about 20% and wastewater rates about 27%. Next year, which is in place today, additional 10% on water and 8% on sewer. The rest of the years you see, the future years that you did adopt, it's in the rate resolution, is roughly 3%, which is more of an indexing, just general inflation going forward. We didn't want to set rates in advance of tonight's hearings because we didn't know what the price of the water plant was and those type of items. But we had to start correcting ourselves in the ship here on this. And why did we do those rates? Well, for the wastewater, the big issue was we needed to have funds to pay for the East Central Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. There's a renewal replacement fund deposit that we need to pay for that. We weren't paying that. We had to adjust rates to pay for that. Secondly, for both utilities, we just went through very high inflationary periods. As we all know, we had double-digit inflation because of COVID and whatnot. We had to recover those improvements. So we made ahead and fixed tried to right size the wastewater side. And water, we did not know what the plant cost was. We knew it was going to be high, several $100 million. We didn't know it was 3, 4, 5. We didn't know what it was. And I made the recommendation that we need to start moving there and getting, because we know it's going to go up. And we recommended let's start with a 20% rate adjustment that'll provide funds for ongoing capital, start setting funds aside for the plant. We have other capital improvements we have to do in the system. It's not just the water plant or the East Central Regional Plant. We have other things that we need to do. So we moved that forward with that, knowing that we would come back to you and adjust these rates based on more current information that we have. And that was the plan. And that's where we are today. So what is affecting the rates? Why do we need rate adjustments? What's happening out there? Well, we have limited customer growth in the system. Although we have growth, There's, several thousands and thousands of units in apartment complexes. It's not, South Florida is a fairly built out utility system, not just Riviera Beach, but West Palm Beach and et cetera, Boca, Fort Lauderdale. It's pretty built out. So the growth is slowing. Why do I say that? For a lot of these utilities, growth masks a lot of issues. You get a lot of capacity fees in and whatnot, so you have a lot of cash, but you may not be in the right position. And as the utilities mature, they tend to, these issues start coming up, and so there's limited growth of the system to produce additional margins. We had inflation on the cost of operations I already mentioned to you. We need to have a dedicated funds for asset replacement. This is a critical issue, not only with Riviera Beach, not only in South Florida, but all across the country. That capital reinvestment is a major, major issue. And as you can probably imagine, if you go to, the cost to replace today versus what was installed in the ground 50 years ago is astronomically different. And we all are experiencing that, whether it's utilities, whether it's groceries or whatnot, the cost is extremely different. And so we need to recognize this funding in the rate. Think of it maybe as a depreciation equivalent, but this is cash funding. You have adopted what's called the bond resolution. When you issued the bonds to do improvements on the utility system and to acquire the system as a district, one of the provisions in that bond resolution is you must establish a renewal and replacement fund, and at minimum, you must deposit 5% of your prior year's gross revenues into that fund. What does that mean? Like, give it to them by way of example. If you had $10 million of revenue, 5% or was it $500,000 needs to be deposited into an R&R fund. That's a very, very low number, be honest with you. We are recommending that we move to 15% of funding for water and 7.5% for sewer. Much more aligned to your needs, much more aligned to the capital programs you've identified, much more in line to the current cost of expenditures. There's a secondary benefit of this. I'll talk about in a second why you do this. Why is wastewater lower than water? Well, one reason, you don't own a wastewater plant. You have an entitlement to the ECR plant, the Central Regional Facility. They have an R&R fund. So it's not fair to charge the same as water on your side, knowing that you have an R&R payment on that side. So we went about half on that right now. The deposits you can see, right now you're about $3 million or so. We go up to about $8 million over the next 5 years or so. And you can see the ECR deposits 2.5% of the fair market value of that asset. It's well over $300 million, I believe, or $400 million is that fair market value. That's what they do. And the annual deposit there is about $1.4 million. That needs to be in your rates. You have a significant capital utility plan. For the next 5 years, it's roughly $451 million. And as you can see, it's primarily water driven. And that's the reason for that is the water treatment plant. To replace that plant in and move it, new wells, raw water mains, etc., to fund that. And it's really almost all of those expenditures are some sort of renewal replacement. Yes, the water plant will have capacity to meet new growth, but if you replace existing capacity of the old plant with the new plant, same capacity, that's really a renewal and replacement. To kind of give you a feel for that $416 million in the water, I think it's the number is $356 million is the plant. We have roughly $30 million for additional wells and things of that nature. And we also have there's another number, can't think what it is right now. Those are the two major items. There's a subaqueous crossing to the island. Also, we're doing that for wastewater
Mr.
as
Chair?
well. Yes, sir.
You just mentioned the number for the plant of 300 and something?
56.
356 million just
That's
for the
just the
plant
plant.
itself?
Yeah, that's what's in our numbers
So
right
the
now.
price went from 115 million to 250 million to now 350
The number we have in there
million?
is, that's the estimate provided to us by the team, 356.
Okay. You can go on, thank you.
Yeah, and there's, of course, we have the wells on top of that, and we got the
I understand
sub-acreage
that.
crossing. That's right. So we've got it up here, you can talk about it. Don't need to go into all the detail about that. It's very expensive. It's roughly between $28, $29 a gallon. And that is what we're also seeing. I mean, the engineers are here and they can speak to this, but what I'm seeing in the industry from a financing standpoint, talking to the engineers, this is about what costs are at right now. Give you a sense of relationship. I talk about this later on. It's probably good to bring it up now because of your question. If you look at your existing assets on your financial statements, $5 a gallon, $90 million of a treatment plant, it's going to $28 a gallon. That's a lot. And you think, well, okay, per gallon, you got 14 million gallons being constructed right now, expandable to 16. 14 million times 27 is a big number. And I'll show you when we talk about capital improvement charges, those utilities that are in the same position you are, new infrastructure, replacing old with new or building new, the costs are tremendous. And again, if you want to hear more for that, we can bring the engineers up who's working with this on this. To fund this program, working with your financial advisor, public financial management, the amount of debt service will increase by $27.3 million. That's the debt service on this, and I got a graph to show you that. And if you think about it, your existing water rates are $21 million. You can kind of see the imbalance right there. And couple that with the increase in R&R to fund our program, it's a lot. The construction of the water plant, and to be honest with you, in those debt numbers you see up there, there is some about $10 or $12 million for the sub-acreage costing for the sewer side. We need to do that project too, and we put that in. I recommend we put that in the debt as well. But you can kind of see there's almost $400 million project fund deposit. That's the column to the left. That's the amount of funds from the bonds being issued to fund project. The total bond issue is $455 million, which includes capitalized interest, which we can talk about later if you like. And you can see what the change in debt service is with the new debt. It's issued in a series of tranches or two series right now. There could be more. This is and the reason why we do this is we wanted to limit the amount of interest expense being paid by the customer, so we can spread that debt out. The interest rates drop. Now I consider this the very conservative financing. There's other options out there. If we get grant funds, et cetera, that could buy down this debt. If the project extends over time, maybe do 3 tranches versus 2, and then reevaluate as you move. But this is what the plan has now based on working with your financial advisor. This also lets you know your existing debt is about $4.1 million. You do have debt on the system right now. If you look at this graph right here, this kind of shows you what the debt looks like before and after. The blue that you see in the bottom left is the existing debt. It's level. You see the columns stay even all the way across. It's level debt service. And then the salmon color is the new debt. And it gets phased in over time. I mentioned the words capitalized interest earlier. What that means is the interest payments on when we issue the bonds in 26 and issue the bonds in 27 or so, the interest would start immediately on this. The bond issue has proceeds in it to help pay that interest, allow the rates to be financed. We could reduce the debt amount by getting rid of that, but that would make because the project starts almost immediately, that it produces a bigger rate adjustment. Additionally, by phasing it in, that gives you time to continue looking for grant funds, looking for maybe some other innovative financings. I know your team was looking with the SRF trying to get very low interest rates, which would affect this, obviously. So time is something you need right now, and that's what this plan does that. The goal is not to get there over time. So another major driver, again, talking about the debt, and this gets a little complicated, is you have the district has what's called a rate covenant in your bond resolution that you adopted to issue bonds. Very common. Every utility I know has issued debt has some sort of rate covenant. It's there to protect the bondholders, that they'll be paid. And that's usually in the form of a debt coverage ratio. And by way of example, if my debt service is $1 million and I have a 1.25 rate covenant requirement, I need $1,250,000 minimum to have 1.25 times that debt service payment. That's what that means. It's like on your mortgage on your house. It used to be you want to have a certain amount of income after you pay all your bills to cover your mortgage payment. It's the same thing here. So your covenant is 120 net revenues, that's rates, or 125 with those impact fees. That's very critical to have the impact fees come in to pay that. Normally, I look at net revenues because that's recurring revenue. Remember, 96% of your revenue, your recurring revenue, comes from rates, and I mentioned that earlier slide. The minimum target we've reflected in the analysis, just so you're aware, is 1.5 times, which is where the rating agencies like to see you be, Fitch, Moody's, etc. Why it's higher? Because that coverage ratio, the 1 to 125, that difference is your R&R funding. It's your other expenditures after the payment of debt, and that's real critical to have that. So we've targeted 150, recognizing in the plan you want to maintain a continuing capital reinvestment plan to make sure that service can continue to be provided, number one, and number two, to limit future debt increases as much as we can going forward. So you need to have adequate cash flow to meet these requirements, these covenants in your bond resolution. Again, very normal, but we have to meet those.
Mr. Chair,
Your witness.
can you explain to us the payment in lieu of taxes, your 6%?
Payment of taxes. That is a payment made by the utility to the city for the loss taxes you would have normally gotten if a private utility was here. By way of example, if Rob or a utility privately owned was here, I would pay property taxes to the city.
Right, Mr. Chair?
And that's usually what it's in lieu of. That's why they call it payment in lieu of taxes.
Well,
because
I
you're a
understand
public-
what payment in lieu of taxes were. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get this out into the public.
Yeah.
So basically what we're doing is the utility is paying the city, and the utility is the city,
Yes.
basically. So we're paying ourselves. So if
6%.
we were a municipal water system, we wouldn't be paying ourselves taxes.
Well, whether you're municipal or a district, you'd still have that because you're still a not-for-profit utility, whether it's a district or the municipal. It's a business policy of the district or / city
It's
to
a
have
policy. Each municipality has the right to make that policy or change that
Yes.
policy.
that. Yes,
So-
and many do it. I'm not gonna tell you all of them do it, but many have some sort of payment in lieu of tax. You normally see the 6% range or 3% range. West Palm, I think, 10%, I believe, is their payment. They have a payment in lieu of tax as well. You see it more on the municipal side than you see it on the county side.
Thank you.
In my experience there, but that's correct. And that's part of that coverage factor too, getting back to that, that's below the debt service payment as well. And that is in that 1.50 factor. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. You can see the rate adjustments for wastewater. I want to talk about those first. They're really relatively minor. The 2025 rates you see up there, the 8%, then 0, then 8 again, those are in effect today. Came into effect October 1st of last year, fiscal 2020, on 2024. And you can see going forward for wastewater that they're not material. We had 3% inflation, and we needed 3% more. The reason for that is increased cost of ECR coupled with the debt service allocation for the force main construction for the intercoastal water. We got that major project built in there that needs to get done. And so we went ahead and financed that project. And that's what basically is the reason for those adjustments. I think after 2029, we didn't forecast it, but most likely you'll stay at that inflationary type level unless something happens at ECR or biosolids or some new regulations come out. I don't see a major change here, which is good. But the water side, this is different. You can see we had 3% again after the rates that were enacted in 25 that are currently in effect, and you'll see a range from 26 to 28%. That is what is needed to phase the rates in, to pay that debt service, fund the R&R, and get this utility back where it needs to be. And that's why we have capitalized interest. I mentioned the reasons for the increase. The major driver really are two. One is the debt service, and the second is the increased R&R where you need to be, which provides the bond covenant compliance in your bond resolution. So that's what that is.
Mr. Chair,
Your Recognize.
I'm a little confused because you came to us and gave us a presentation last time.
I did?
That was basically a 20% increase per year for 4 years is what you were showing us then. And I know that the price of the plant has gone up and the capital costs have gone up. So is that what is the difference between the 20% and the close to 39% that you're coming to right now?
The 20% was one time. We didn't have it 4 years.
I thought you had 4 years. The first presentation you gave us was 4 years at 20%.
I have to go back and
We
look.
came to close to 100% increase in
If that's-
water over the 5-year period.
If I did, then that would be, I still remember. I remember the 20 that we adopted. But yes, if that's the case, then the cost of the plant has gone higher.
Okay, so now,
And the recovery period has been contracted. We had 5 years.
so you reduced the
That's
time
right. We had
period.
5 years, and now we have 4 years per se.
Okay, I see. Mr. Chair, can I do a follow-up, please?
Your Recognize.
Okay, so I just want to get this clear because, everyone's looking at your numbers and everything, but I know a lot of people have a lot of concern. Obviously, this is a pretty big increase
It is.
for the community. Of course, we need a new water plant and transmission systems and wells. We all understand that. But we have we have impact fees, obviously, that'll be coming in on major development that we expect to be coming in here.
Right.
We have possible, the SRF money could possibly, part of it up to 50%. We'll shoot for 50%. I don't know, but maybe we'll get 20% taken out, turned into a grant. It's called a forgiveness rate through the SRF program. Have
Right.
you taken any of that into consideration
No,
in these numbers? You have not. So that
No.
could reduce these numbers.
definitely.
And so then we can revisit this in the next year and reduce the numbers, right?
And that's exactly my recommendation to you is until these events occur, by way of example, you get approved for the SRF loan and you get principal forgiveness and it's $50 million, let's say, just pick a number.
Mm.
I don't want to bank on that happening and it doesn't happen and you don't have the revenues in place to issue the debt because the plant's going to go. Once you start turning dirt, it doesn't stop, right? You don't want to stop the plant mid-construction.
Right.
So you got to have almost the worst case scenario here, and that's what we've done. But we're going to talk about impact fees. I'm proposing to raise them a lot because the more impact fees we get, the less the existing ratepayer has to pay for this. It goes to buy down the bonds, right?
Right.
And I'm talking a major, and I'll show it to you later on. I can tell you now if you want, but it's significant, and that's the reason why. But if you get grant funds, which is cost-free capital to you. We're not going to issue the debt relative to that. If you get $100 million of grants, if we could, it'd be a godsend. That's 25% of the project cost. That's one whole year off of the rate adjustment, if you think about it, which is a lot.
You recognize?
And so I just wanted everyone to understand this is a worst-case scenario.
Yes,
And
but
the odds are very good that we're going to be able to reduce these rates.
we're gonna have to work hard to do that. It's going to be a lot of areas. I think it's not just grants. It's going to be, changing financing, low interest rates, subordinate debt, SRF. It's going to be a lot of things. I think
Right.
you're going to have to do when you get there. But the way I understand it, the plant has got to go like now.
Right, Mr. Chair?
You recognize?
Right, and I just want to make this clear. We've known about this issue since 2013,
Yes.
and we did very little since 2013 until now. The cost of construction has gone up close to 100 to 200% in just the last 3 years. So just think of that when you're building a $350 million plant.
And 2013 was 60.
Right.
Right. And so as we did this plan, we wanted to look at where you were kind of fiscally as well. And this is the cash balance in your operating fund, your checking account, so to speak, not capital. And you can see that the projected estimated cash balances decline in 25 and 26. That's because you're spending money on your other capital improvements. That's not being financed from the bonds. These would be lift station improvements and things of that nature. Part of your subaqueous crossings we funded from cash. Anywhere we could, the goal was use cash first to the extent. And that allowed us also to phase in rates, and it goes back up again, and it exceeds the red line, which I think is the target revenues at 150 days of operating expenses. So I thought the ending position is good and provides us a little bit of cushion, a little bit of flexibility in the rate phasing plan as you look at this. Your capital account is looking pretty good. This is that R&R talked about. The salmon is the water and sewer impact fees added together, and you can see the tail. And I don't know how much is water or sewer. They're all commingled, as I remember right. But what I would like to do is as we realize more of the salmon colors, I want to buy down the debt. Well, my recommendation is to buy down the debt. I'm not going to say I want to do it personally, but my recommendation would be to try to buy down that second debt as you know the value of that number. These are projections, just so the public understands this, the capital improvement charges, the salmon, they're one-time charges to development. So they're kind of speculative since they're one time. If the growth occurs real quick, you get a lot. If it goes slow, you don't get a lot. But they will come. But there's always a timing issue, construction versus receipt. You got to have the capacity to sell it. And that's kind of where we are. So there's a benefit sitting there, I think, for that. This is that coverage ratio with the rate adjustments I talked about earlier. And you're very strong. It goes up over time because we're raising rates and we're not paying debt service because of that capitalized interest I mentioned earlier. We've limited no debt service payments up front to allow the rates to grow up. But once you have full debt service, you're at that 150. Last year, that forecast, you're at the 150. And we don't think you want to go below that, personally. Even though your requirement is 125, the red line, you want to be at least at a 150 that shows financial strength and additional capital reinvestment. That's where you want to be. So talk about rates, and I'll just go through this very quickly. We looked at your rates. You currently have a base charge and a monthly usage charge. It's a very common rate in Florida and also utilized by the Public Service Commission. Your base charge represents your minimum bill. And right now, your minimum bill, your base charge recovers about 38% of your total revenues. So 38% is a base, 62% is volumetric type revenues. I think that's a very strong position to be in. I don't like to, I try to stay no less than 30, 38, 40% is good. Fixed costs, fixed rates are stable. They don't, they're not variable. They're stable. You get them every year, and it's very important to have that. And the rate agencies also like that. Usage recovers the rest. For the water system, you do have tiered rates. It's required of your consumptive use permit to have tiered water rates. And tiered water rates means as the usage goes up, the price goes up. The first 5,000 is $4. The next 5 to 10 is $5. So that's an inclining or increasing tiered rate, and that's required by the Water Management District to have that structure. They don't tell you where it should be, but you must have one to get for your consumptive use permit requirement. So that is you have that. We're proposing no change to the existing rate structure. We did structure it a little bit. The low-end residential customers are getting a slightly reduced rate versus the high end. It's not much. But we have some of that built in, and there's really no change there too much.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
Well, since you're bringing up the rate increases and the tiers, on Singer Island, we have condominiums that basically have 1 meter.
Right.
So you're going to have high usage coming out of that meter. Is that going to increase the rate based upon the usage?
Yes, it will.
Because we're a high user.
Yeah,
and they're high users.
They're the high user, but your base charge is based on your meters. That's dropping. So the base charge for water and sewer will be less, I think, for multifamily.
Excuse the pun, it'll be a wash.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm not going to call it a wash because you got the rate adjustment that's there. But they're not getting as hit as hard. Everyone's going to get a probably pretty substantial increase. It's 30% on water side. On the sewer side, the base charge is actually dropping, which will benefit multifamily because it's per unit based. Your rate on the base charge is per unit based, dwelling unit based. So if you got 100 dwelling units, you pay 100 base charges per se. That's going to drop.
Is the minimum fee on those multifamilies going to change at all?
Sorry?
Is the minimum usage fee going to change?
The base charge?
Yeah.
Yes.
How much? How much is that base charge going to change on multifamily?
Give me a minute.
Here.
You recognize.
If I'm not mistaken, it seemingly is connected with the size of the meter that's proposed inside of the rate schedule, or Exhibit A, I should say.
Okay. The question was, what's the base charge for the multifamily? Let me give you the base charge for residential first, and I'll give you the base charge per unit for multifamily. For October 1st, the fiscal year 2026 rates, the single family would pay $30.69. This is water only. And the multifamily would pay $25.28 per unit.
Chair.
You recognize.
So, can you remind me of your name?
Robert Ori.
One more time.
Robert Ori, O-R-I.
Lori or Ori?
Ori, O.
Okay, Mr. Ori, so is there not a meter replacement charge that's incorporated in these rates?
We've got it built into the revenue requirements. It's built into the base charge itself. Yeah. We didn't do an individual meter base. We didn't have the data to quite do that. And so we kept the traditional rate of that. We put the meter costs and some of the asset costs into the base charge itself.
Well, that's certainly different than 2023 because it was broken out.
Yeah, it's separate. In fact, it's just built into the rate in general, but it's built in now. So, which really actually benefits low end users.
So if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at the 2023 rates. For the example that Councilmember Spirit just brought up, the multifamily you said was $25.28.
That's correct.
And that's up from what used to be $15.08.
And sewer is roughly zero. I can give you the sewer one if you'd like. So we had to look at, multifamily was, the class itself on water was pretty low. And if you look at the average cost per gallon among the classes before and what they are now, they're much more aligned in terms of how much the class is contributing on a per gallon basis. They're much closer now. So I think the rates are much more reasonable than they were before. On sewer, oops, I'll get there. Give me 1 second.
For multifamily, it shows
2106 water, residential, excuse me, 1570 for sewer. If you got the 23 rate there, I don't have that in front of me. Or 24 rate, I guess you should have. You probably have that one.
So just curious, why does multifamily play less than
We
residential?
lowered we looked at the base extra capacity, the relationship of the average demand to the peak demand, and determined that the wastewater should be lowered on the base charge because of those relationships. Number two is majority of your cost is East Central Regional payments, and that's all flow based. It's all based on contribution of flow. And we didn't think it was fair to put variable costs into the fixed charge for something like that, so that actually lowered.
Yeah. So what's the factor for determining the amount of gallons that a person uses in sewage? We just equate that to the amount that they used in fresh raw well water?
Well, the sewer is based on water.
Right, but
Right.
let's just say I got a 50,000 gallon pool. You're gonna charge me 50,000 for 50,000 gallons of water, and then you're also gonna charge me that much for sewer.
No, the sewer rate has for the residential individually metered class, has a sewer cap. So you can't go above 10,000 gallons. So if you're filling your 20,000 gallon pool, two things should really happen in my mind. One is if you didn't ask for credit, but the 20,000, let's say that's all your flow you had.
Didn't ask for credit?
No, hold on a second. If you fill your 20,000 gallon pool, first of all, the second 10,000 would not even be in the sewer charges, number one. Many utilities have a pool filling credit that, oh, you filled your pool, prove it to me, and I'll give you a sewer break. Not the water, but the sewer. That's the credit I was talking about. But generally, you have in your rates, which is very common, a billing cap on the residential side, so you don't charge, your attempt is not to charge non-sewered water a sewer fee. And we maintain that.
So there's a cap on everyone's sewage up to 10,000 gallons.
Residential only.
Residential only.
Right. Commercial doesn't have that because generally they're non-for-profit businesses and they try to control their discretionary use by lowering their water sales. And in most commercial is indoor use or essential use. With residential customers, there's a lot of discretionary and excessive use. You over irrigate, let's say you're a 10,000 customer. We have the exact same lots. You use 10,000, and I use 150,000. We're the same. Well, we're still contributing the same amount to the wastewater side, 10,000. It's indoor use. The irrigation does not go to the sewer, and that's why you have the cap, which I think is the right thing to do is cap your residential flows. Some people don't do that. Melbourne, for example, has no cap. Whatever you use on water, bill on sewer.
Yeah, but how do I know that we have a cap?
It's in your resolution.
Well,
It should be. Normally that would be in the resolution, and you can bill it, and it's in the new one too.
Mr. Ori, welcome to Riviera Beach. There's nothing normal about this. In fact, if you look at our new logo, it says, "See what's beneath the surface," and it's not normal.
Oh, well.
Okay. So, yeah. So I have some other questions. So I appreciate the work you've done on this in terms of the rates. And maybe this is a question for Mr. Sherman, but how has it been determined about the other fees that's associated with water utilities that aren't directly rates?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, I'm not speaking of the rates. I'm
You're
speaking of
the
fees.
other charges type of stuff.
Fees.
Like a turn-on fee or something like
Yes.
that? Okay.
Or for instance, and this is a Mr. Sherman question. So if, I guess, should I wait? Do you have much more on your presentation?
I have a lot, but But not much more on this. I got
Okay.
the kid. Let me just see where I'm at real quick, and I'll tell you. I've lost it. How do I get this? Go back one? Oh, okay. I wanted to talk to you real quick. If you just give me a few more minutes. This is the rates for 25 that you're in effect today, and 20 in fiscal 26, which is the next rate adjustment coming up. 9-10 months from now. It's not today. And the recommendation was to not adjust rates above what you adopted on October 1st, 2024. Is you already adopted 20%, 10% for water, let's say, there's no adjustment going forward. So that's shortened that recovery period. Councilman, you asked earlier about the 20% per year. They got a little higher. We have less years to do that. The one recommendation was go ahead and increase now some because it's coming. But there's no rate adjustment for this year. The next year, you can see what the rate adjustments are. This is for a standard 5,000 gallon customer. That's your median customer. 50% of the customers use 5,000 or less. 50% use 5,000 or more, which is pretty. That's what the median means. Your average runs, if you took the pure average of residential, it's between 5 and 6. And as you know, some use 0 and some use 100,000 gallons. But in any event, at 5,000 gallons, which is it's a little bit easier to talk from, you can see the water bill would go up about $13.66. I'm 3 lines up from the bottom on the left-hand column. Sewer is about $2.70 for an increase of $16, which is about 19% of the current bill. It's about 19% combined increase. Water is a lot higher, sewer is a lot lower. Most of your customers are water and sewer services, just so you know. The major majority are both services. So I showed separately to show if you're water only, what you'd be. Then there's really not many sewer only. Then you'd have the total there. So that's the adjustment there. Oops. How that compares to the region today, you can see. You can see the dark red and blue is the district where we stand today, and what we're recommending for the next 9 months. Hold on a second. Red would be, well, the blue is water, except for the district, which is red, and then the orange is sewer, except for the blue. I don't know why you didn't flip these. For wastewater, you can see your rates are going up compared to the region, but you're still actually not the highest. The town of Davie, Miramar, and Fort Lauderdale, which have a lot of issues. Fort Lauderdale, especially, they're replacing their one of their big wastewater plants as well, like you guys are doing. And you can see where they are. They've had double-digit rate adjustments as well.
Mr. Ori.
Yes, sir.
How much more do you have?
On this part only, I can stop now if you'd like me to.
I guess I want to ask a question because.
Go ahead, board member.
So this is where it's important that we kind of zero in on this, because when you're looking at that, right, and you're saying that we would be just above the average of $82.39. That's just the base.
That's where you are today, and for the rest of the year, that's where you would stay.
Correct.
That's right.
But we need to make sure that first of all, we've never had this many people in our meetings relative to a utility rate water increase. And I think at some point staff needs to join in on this conversation, Mr. Evans, because this is just the water and sewer. And most of our residents have raised concerns about their utility bill, but there's other components of the bill that you haven't even touched. And I want to make sure that it's abundantly clear as to what a person is expected to pay for water and sewer, and then what the overall entire utility bill is that covers trash and also stormwater, which we haven't even so much as talked about yet.
Right.
And I understand your point, but I'm just asking if we could put a pause in what you're saying so that we can put this in context, because while that may be accurate, that's not a true reflection of what a utility account holder is going to see when they bill come in the mail.
The total bill, you're absolutely right. The total bill you get includes a majority of cost components. You mentioned water and sewer, you mentioned stormwater, and you mentioned garbage or solid waste. There may be others on there, I'm not sure. We only tasked to look at water and sewer.
I'm aware of that. That's why I asked if you could pause,
I'm
Mr. Ori.
I'm saying it back to you for them to hear it as well. So,
Yeah, but
and you're absolutely right.
can we have Mr. Sherman, because this is where it begins to get a little confusing. Or did he leave already?
He's here.
Oh. So members, if I can call your attention to Exhibit A, Mr. Sherman. So it's important that Mr. Ori brought this up, but what I'm not exactly clear on and why we even have this in here, everybody in the city just got this notice about the trash increasing, was it 2%? But you have this listed inside of this exhibit with the previous trash rate of $22.05. So if I'm to believe what we have in front of us is what we're going to adopt, then that would essentially keep the trash rates where it is. So why would you have trash rates inside this exhibit?
So you're not, in 2023, we had you adopt the schedule, so that's not what we're asking for you to do at this time. We're asking you to adopt the resolution, which has the rates, which I've taken those rates and put them in the schedule. You're correct, the 2205 has changed as of January 1st, okay? By 57 cents, it's now 2262. But notice also on the bottom of the schedule, the cap fees. So again, if we get to the other agenda item this evening and talk about cap fees, those will change as well. What's reflected on here, and you talked about the other fees, what's reflected on here when you adopted the rates or the schedules, we'll say, in 2023, remember at that point, we just did a increase across the board to all of our fees. So the fees in here for 2025 are 3% higher. If you're looking at the fees at the bottom, are 3% higher than the year before, and next year will be higher, and next year will be higher. By that 3%, just to keep up the inflationary items. What these are based on, okay, so if you look at things like the turnoff fee, okay, that's pretty much about 15 minutes. We got somebody on the street, that's about what it takes them to go to a meter, turn a meter on or off. It obviously doesn't tie to one specific person, but that's about an average that we have. When you look at like the after hour calls, we're required to pay our employees 3 hours minimum when we call them out. So that's again a roughly 3-hour average of employees. The fire line fees actually came from the study, but these are intended to represent the cost of service that we incur when we're doing those fees.
Oh, Mr. Sherman, okay, but I don't understand, and I shared this concern with the city attorney, and I don't want to go too far into this, but I've seen where folks have to come up with $400 just to open a utility account in the city of Riviera Beach. In fact, what we have here is going to take that to $450 if they're a tenant. That is completely unreasonable, considering, right, if you're just opening a utility account, if you have an average of $82.39 based on 5,000 gallons of usage, that would essentially equate to almost five monthly billings worth of deposit that you have to put down. And I'm trying to understand where's the nexus or rational basis as to why we charge so much for a tenant to put down $450.
Sure, I can address that. That came around, I believe it was in 2015. We were charging 1 month's deposit. And again, we continued to be hit with people who would come in, run their bills up, leave town, and leave us with these balances over and over. At the time, the board increased the deposit to 2 months for a homeowner and 3 months on rental property. Because again, those are the ones that obviously keep turnover. But that was a board policy decision, I'm going to say almost 10 years ago.
Right, but it didn't add for like a price escalation either. What was
Right,
the
but,
board?
but it's 3 months. It's 3 months bill. So again, we take the average on a residential bill, and then we charge 3 times that to open up an account for a rental property.
Yes, but 3 times that is gonna be $246 or $247.
Correct.
Yeah, but I'm looking at $424 right here for a tenant.
Because that's not your average bill. So again, we set it based on the average at the time. Okay, and again, when we change the rates, that changes that number, and I can get you that rate. I obviously don't have it with me, but I can certainly provide that to you if you like. But that was the board's decision that we went 2 months from 1 to 2, and then for rental properties for the tenants, we went to 3.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
If I can just fill in a couple of blanks that may have happened, and I can turn it back over to Mr. Roy. We do have a pool credit. We ask people to call us in advance if you are going to use our water to fill your pool, so we can track how much that water is, and then we do not charge the sewer rate on that. And I did want to clarify the issue. We have been using $356 million, and I think when I speak to Ms. Torrey on the plant, that does include the wells, that does include some of the below ground infrastructure. If you've got the booklet, includes the transmission lines, demolition of the old plant. So it's the full package that we've been using, within that 356. We do, however, have another $43 million worth of projects that are in the out years in our 5-year CIP, but it's about $43 million of unfunded projects at that time. So when we've been tossing out the $400 million number, it's 356 for the plant, the wells, all the transmission, and the $43 million for those other projects. The difference, again, part I want to clarify, the 356 was based on 30% drawings. Okay, that was the number that we had back in August. Clearly, when we get to 60% drawings, those numbers, are obviously going to change. And again, we're going to be 6-9 months away from the 356, so we know we'll have some inflation that we're going to have to deal with at that point. So that 356 at this point is more likely probably like 375 or something like that. But again, I just did want to talk about that. And one more thing, you've added in capitalized interest, correct? Okay, so Mr. Ori has built into his numbers for the city to, in essence, borrow funds to pay the interest back during the construction period. That's not unusual for construction projects for that to happen, but it does add to the debt and it adds to the cost. And we're going to try everything we can to not have to do that. And again, if we can get the rates and we do more pay-as-we-go type capital, hopefully we can offset and not have the need to do that. But I just wanted to clarify the record on those things, and I'll turn, because I know you have like 3 more slides.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize Dr. Spiritus.
So Randy, you're talking about the interest during the construction period, and if we're successful in getting the WIFIA money, you realize we don't have to pay 1 nickel till 5 years after the plant is up and operating.
Correct.
And they'll
Hey,
work with
but
the
it still
SRF.
accrues, right? Correct.
Okay, can I ask another question, Mr. Chair?
You recognize.
Do we have I see our engineers are here. Do we have a GMP on this project yet? No, so these are all guesstimates?
Out of the booklet that Randy just had, the early work line item in there, sorry, Suzanne Meckler, CDM Smith, part of the joint venture of Haskell and CDM Smith. Okay, thank you. In this booklet, the line item associated with the Avenue L site clearing of 5.997 million is already been approved by the board, and was approved February of 2024.
The first portion of the wells, so there's a line item for groundwater supply wells. That first half of that, which we approved in December of about 14 million, right? That was already approved. We are starting construction on that. And the second set of those wells are up for your approval tonight. So those have been advertised, bid out. We have a negotiated and have a number for that. All the other numbers have not come to a GMP.
When do we expect to get something?
We are intending to advertise for early procurement of equipment. I think we had talked to you about that a couple months ago, and the deep injection well within the next pretty much 2 weeks. We will put that out, and that will come back to the board. We have to put it on the street for 30 to 45 days. We'll come back to the board for that. That'll be the next one. And then after that, the intent is to advertise the plant in late spring.
Mr. Chair?
Right.
Can I get a set of the plans and specifications that we have prepared up to this date? I'd like to have a hard copy, and you can also do a Dropbox.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment cards for this item?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item.
How many,
Did you want to hear them now?
how many do we have?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have 4.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and, Mr. Ori, hear some of the public comment cards, and then we'll come back to finishing your presentation. We do have another item, so if we can go through some of the presentation a little bit rapid, and then we will ask the questions, because the board has reviewed this already, so we want to ask the questions, make sure.
I
that
can
we
go, I can go real quick on it.
Thank you. Well, not real quick, but we want to go quick enough so we can get through the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ori. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, for the record, I would like to announce that ex officio board member Mayor Ronnie Felder is present. Will the following public speakers come forward? Mike Mahoney, Rochelle Hughes, Mrs. Mary Bram, and the last speaker will be Julie.
Good evening, Mike Mahoney, 2120, 2135 Broadway. I got on the internet today and I was just looking at the sewer and water revenue bond thing here in Riviera Beach with the gentleman's here was just going over everything with all the charts. And, you know, it's hard for me. I think everybody else will look at these charts and decipher what's going on with the money and stuff. You know, my water bill at my business, these t-shirts is like $100 a month. And I don't use very much water at all. Toilets, you know, that's it. I don't drink the water. I don't shower with it. I don't do anything. I live in North Palm Beach. My water rate at home, I know they probably differ here, but I pay like $35 North Palm Beach. And I use the water like, I don't even worry about it there. So, you know, I don't know why. Again, is it because of the water plant is in disrepair for the last 20 or 30 years? Is this why the water bill is so damn expensive? I mean, excuse my language. But, you know, this rating, this bond rating thing, it's interesting, but I don't know enough of it to really explain to everybody. I think it would help to kind of explain that, because there's a lot of things involved in what the city's trying to do and developing that's contingent on this revenue bond being rated like A+. I think that's what it's rated right now, apparently by the Fitch ratings out of New York. I might be mistaken, but so everything, it seems like everything's contingent on the water utilities department in the city. Is this where we get the majority of our money? Because I've been here a long time, and it just seems like the utility rates is generating an ungodly amount of money in the city. I'd like to know what that is. I really would. Is there any way we can find that out? How much money the city brings in off utilities? So, you know, that's just my concerns, you know. And then the gentleman spoke about the project, the water plant now is like 356 million, and it's going up. Seems like it goes up every minute, you know. And then he mentioned possibly another 40, 50 million for other projects. So the other projects, you know, would be the intracoastal force main lift stations, which I don't know how many lift stations the city had. Probably all of them need to be replaced. Road infrastructure, which would deal with getting to these underground pipes that are dilapidated, and various other replacement projects. So, you know, I know he touched on all this stuff, but it's an ungodly amount of money. And I can't see the rates going up 20, 25%, which the district is projecting every year. And when's that going to stop? It's when we get a new plant in 2028 or whenever
Thank you,
the
Mr.
new
Mahoney.
plant, are the rates going to go down?
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Rochelle Hughes.
Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Baker Hughes, you're up. Thank you.
Good evening, Rochelle Hughes, Lone Pine Estates. A couple things regarding the rate increases. One of the things I'm wondering, and I've seen it in other municipalities, the stormwater and trash that is on our water bill, our utility water bill, has the city ever thought about having those moved to our yearly taxes, which then we would get a 4% discount for paying it early in November, and it wouldn't be on our utility bill, and it may end up saving everybody, some money. That's one thing. For the amounts, my other question is for the amounts that is being increased starting in 2026 towards the water plant and facilities, is that those funds, so we have, let's say, $84 right now is the amount, it's going to go up to 100. Is that extra money going to be put into a reserve account just for the water treatment plant? And is there a way that if a resident wanted to say, hey, we want to make sure these funds are actually going into the water treatment facility fund, is that possible to look at? I think this was answered, but if the city does get grants, I know I came to the meetings last week and the city's trying to get grants and funding, state, federal, that kind of stuff. So if they do get the grants and you do get money, I believe I heard that these rates could possibly be decreased if we get that extra money. I think I heard that. So I think it was answered, but I just want to put that out there. And in regards to the construction, if the material costs decrease while this construction is going on, will the city receive credit back from the contractor, which will then be not credited, but like our water bills might get decreased because there was credit for materials? Because I know material costs go up and down. I work in the construction business, so I see it all the time. And, just saying, what if next year some of these materials prices go down? Will the city get the credit, which they will then in turn give the credit to the residents? Then the other thing, and I don't have a lot of time, but there's some confusion because the chart that we got in this little thing that was mailed out to us was way different from the chart they were just showing. There was a lot more cities added, so it's kind of confusing to us because we went on this. Thank you. Mrs. Mary Brown.
Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach. Apparently, we at a pivotal moment here. And you as a board here, you must decide on the necessities and where we must, not where we want to go, but where we must go in order to achieve what we need to achieve. I'm going to say something here. For the growth of this city, it was not planned. It was not foreseen that we would grow like we have grown. And once when we grow, we do expansions, whether we like it or not. We cannot stay in a shell for the rest of our lives. We grow from children to adults and to who we are today. I am a widow, and I must say, in 2018, I did not choose to be a widow. It chose me. But I have to navigate myself in order to accommodate the necessities in my life that I must have. I know I must have a roof over my head. I know that I have to pay my taxes. I know I have to buy groceries. I know I have to pay insurance, my home insurance. All of these things, they are the necessities, but I have to navigate them. I have to pay them in spite of. And this is where we are at here now, these pivotal moments in where we are today. It has been said here that if we do find that some costs can be adjusted, we will do that. But now we must move forward. Miss Brown will make a sacrifice. I have to, because my children are in this city. My businesses are in this city. My schools are in this city. Me as a senior is in this city and other residents. And we are building and the peoples are constantly coming. So what are you going to say? Are you going to leave everybody defenseless? Because we have to make critical decisions. And it calls for stepping out. It calls for not fear. It calls for courage. If we had done this back in 1980 and put in some rates then, but see, nobody thinks beyond the nose span because they did not anticipate growth. But now we are at the moment here. That was then, and this is now. So we are faced with reality here. So this is not a wake-up call. This is a doing call.
For your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
The last speaker is Julie.
Hi, Julie Logston, 1180 Dolphin Road. Good evening. I have a lot of comments, so I'm going to move quick. One, I'd just like to understand if the city has put this out for a competitive bid. And if so, are those bids available for the residents to see? Because I would like to understand the analysis that goes into all of this. And I certainly hope we're holding ourselves accountable, because in the business world, all of these things need to go out for a competitive bid, and you guys have to be responsible to the residents. And the only way to do that is to have competitive bids, and they should be visible for us to see. I'd also like to know how they compare to the, other build scenarios in Florida and nationally. Secondly, is there an option, a cheaper option? Has anybody looked at an alternative to subcontract this, I don't know, to Seacoast, to West Palm Beach, to Jupiter? Because maybe we could get better water, because I won't even drink our water. Maybe we could get better water faster and cheaper if there's an alternative. I would hope we explored that. The third one, in a previous meeting, I know, and I read in the paper and brought up, that there were grants available, and I would certainly think our community would be high on the list to qualify for those. I'd like to know how much in the grants towards utility and water improvement we actually applied for and expect to receive. Because my guess is we probably didn't even apply for anything. The other thing is, not all our water meters are actually working in Riviera Beach. So when you use a denominator, I'm assuming you're basing it on all of the properties in Riviera Beach, as well as including growth. I know significant numbers of houses that the meters are not working. So you need to fix that problem first, or you're going to have an underrun, depending on what your denominator is. The 6% that we're paying ourselves on a tax, I'd like to know what the city's doing with that, why we're not reducing our rates instead of, I don't know, whatever we're doing with that. The $356 million cost for the plant, you mentioned that there was a 15% reserve, and certainly for all of our infrastructure, we need to have an ongoing replacement budget. I'd like to make sure that if there is a replacement budget, that it's actually protected and that you can't go spend it on something else so that we run into this same mess 20 or 30 years from now. The other thing, again, back to business cases, I'd like to understand, how long does one of these plants last? Where is the year-by-year plan that shows how much we're collecting, what the anticipated cost of one of these to rebuild is, and how
Thank you
much
for your
we're
comments,
setting
ma'am.
aside.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Orr?
I think where I was, but in terms of action items, you know, I know it's getting late, but again, there'd be no additional rate adjustment plan for this fiscal year. We've mentioned that. The rates that are in effect today remain for the next 9 months. And the rate adjustment we talked about, the next 30% for water, 6% or so for sewer, would become effective
Or can
October.
you talk to the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. October 1st of 2025. The issue, we talked a lot about the bond resolution and bonds, and there's a lot of requirements in the bond resolution because it's a contract between you and the bondholders, certain things you'll do. And many times too, that bond resolution also becomes somewhat of a financial policy, debt coverage, for example, maintaining a renewal replacement fund, the 15% reserves that was just mentioned earlier, which is a positive requirement. But there's another component in the bond resolution you need to know about and why we need to adopt these rates immediately. And that is, it's what's called an additional bonds test. Your rates need to be set in place. Your revenues derived from those rates need to be set in place such that when you issue the bonds, you can meet all those covenants again, the debt service reserve, the debt service coverage requirement, the flow of funds we talked about earlier, paying O&M, R&R, debt service, et cetera. You must have those in place. And that's the reason, because of the timing of a construction and issuing 2 series of bonds, one in 26 and one 27, we have, or I think it's 26, 27, we have to have these rates in place. And my recommendation as your rate consultant is, knowing this is I think a worst case scenario unless costs continue to rise, but you have to have them in place. And as conditions change, grant funds, lower interest rates and financing, et cetera, you can adjust these rates moving forward, but you have to have the rates in place to issue the debt as we see it today. So that's the issue I wanted to mention there. If they're not enacted, you can't count them in the test. So our recommendations as your consultant would be to adopt the rate resolution and review this analysis, update it annually with the goal to reduce rates in the future. I'd start with 29 back. That's where get those rate adjustments out of there, because you're going to be issuing debt in the near term. Try your darnest to get as much grants and loan forgiveness as possible. That should be a top priority, and move forward with that. Because every $1 million of recurring reduction in cost, $1 million, it's going to be every year. That's $2 to $3 off the bill. So if I get $100 million of grant funds that reduces my debt payment by $10 million, $12 million, I got a $24, $25 reduction. That's one whole year of increase almost. So that's where we need I think the move as the district and city to get the plan started. My recommendation is do what we need to do, then turn around and essentially prove me wrong. That's what I would recommend to you as your consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Todd Asparagus?
maybe this is for Mr. Sherman's. The $43 million that we had budgeted for wells, which we had a bond issue, I believe, that expired. Is that included in this new rate? That's not included, so that's going to be an additional cost.
Again, Randy Sherman, District Finance Director. So again, we went out to try to get some short-term until we get to the full bond sale, and we would have flipped that over. And again, the timing, as you recall, didn't work on all that. So the first $13 million, the first wells that you've approved are funded. We took that out of our cash reserves, our renewal and replacement and the like. That's funded. What's in the $356 million is the balance of those wells.
So the balance of those
So the
bonds are in
wells
there.
that are on tonight, okay, if you approve the rates and then you move forward with the wells, the resolution that you approved in November does have a reimbursement provision in it. So anything we spend from November forward, we can get reimbursed from the bonds.
Okay, Mr. Chair, follow up. So basically, the $16 million is impact fees. Is that not correct, that we're using right now to do the projects that we're working on?
No, it really came from, so the way the revenues flow in the utility district, all the revenues come in, we pay all the operating expenses, then we pay all the debt service, then we make all the transfers that Ms. Dory was talking about, and then whatever is left goes into a capital pot that we use. It came from that surplus as that flows through.
Do we have money sitting in the impact fee line right now?
We do, but it's minimal. It's minimal at this time because we haven't had a lot of new construction going on. And as it's come in, we've been appropriating it for capital projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy, Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Thank you. We're going to do public comments for utility district meeting. Public comments begin at 5:45 unless there's no further business of the city. In the event, it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 5:45, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded that the City Council Board has adopted rules of decorum for governing public meetings during official meetings, which is posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, City Council chairperson may have a disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building. Please govern yourselves accordingly. And before we go into public comments, I wanted to address a resident that outcried during the meeting. Residents, we're not going to be screaming out during the meeting. We have to get to the business, and we have a lot of business to handle tonight. They will address some of the concerns that was addressed in regards to the order of regular city council and utility district, where we have one noticed second reading tonight, which is on ordinance. As long as we get to the city council meeting before midnight, that will be taken tonight after we finish the utility district meeting. So we're going to get through the business of the utility district. We will go into the city council meeting. I do not want any other residents giving any outcries or blurting out during the meeting because we have business to get through. So please let the speakers speak, and then we'll get back to the business. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
We have 16 public comment cards. The first speaker is Michael Jordan, followed by Mike Mahoney and Cindy March.
First of all, I would like to say hello to the council and everybody in their respectable places. I'm gonna go ahead. I don't want to take up too much time. First of all, from my perspective, I think these presentations are taking a little bit too long because they're sitting up here talking a lot of jargon. They think that Riviera Beach is a cash cow. They only come when they want to ask for money, and sometimes we saying yes, and sometimes the residents don't even know what we're saying yes to. You understand what I'm saying? And I want to be respectful toward you all, and I'm going to be respectful, but I have to state exactly what I feel and say exactly what I mean. Second thing is, we still have internal situations that we need to fix. We need the truth to be told to us at all times about what went on with the water, what we're going to do to move forward in 5785, okay, because they're still existing. Yes, I know it was problems way before you all came, but you're here now. So fix the problem now and work on the problem now. There's no way I see us moving forward if we trying to move forward being dishonest. You know what I'm saying? Right now, the residents, because I've talked to many of them, don't believe anything that come out of the mouths of whatever come from the city. That's not a relationship that we ruined. That's something that you all ruined because you all are in authority and you all are in power to run this city. Now, some of the residents I did have a conversation with because some of them can't come out. They said, well, we're not really believing what they're saying. We don't know if the water clean or not. I told them, get together, be on one accord, have a meeting in your community, okay, and get together and be on one accord, get to the ballot box and send y'all flying if you ain't doing what you're supposed to do. I'm just saying, that's just the way the residents feels right now. You have seniors living on a fixed income, the bills going up. These people cannot pay that. But everybody sit here, like, okay, well, ain't much we could do about it. Yeah, but we still got a $1.2 million bill that we got to pay for the violations. And then guess what? Everybody out here got to pay for it. And I know I've never talked to you all in this manner before, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but this is the way I feel. I'm not changing it, whether you like it or not. That's the way it is. Let's get to business. We're in 5785. Even the Lord thy God say that he's doing a new thing. We cannot go back and run a new cycle off the old cycle because it didn't work. So if people not doing their jobs, I'm not saying find them, but maybe this is not where they need to work. And if you can't exercise your authority to put them to the test of what they're supposed to do, then maybe you shouldn't be here. So I say it respectfully, and then I bow down.
Thank you for your comments.
Cindy March, Marvelous Washington.
And residents, we do have a lot of public comments, so if you hear your name called, please line up behind the speakers. Go ahead, Mr. Mahoney. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate you guys passing it. I think we needed to pass it, even though we don't like the amount of money that's going to be spent. But it's too bad because we've been here 30 years or 40 years with business in the city. And, I guess something could have been done years ago. But the other question I have, just to make sure, I know there's a lot of other things that are going to have to be fixed along with this, other lift stations and things that I mentioned, gentlemen mentioned, but because my business where it sits right now, Main Street Plaza, back like 10, 15 years ago, from then on, like 5 or 6 years, we had 3 black water backups in my building. And it was because of the inadequate maintenance of a certain lift station in that area. So, if we're spending this kind of money, I just hope that you guys or whoever's in charge of maintaining the city's underground utilities and sewer drainage and everything else, that's taken care of. Because you guys can't afford for that to happen again. It's happened 3 times to me. I don't know anybody else in here that had problems with that. I think there have been some homeowners that had that. But, every time that happens, the city gets sued. It costs some money. So hopefully you could take care of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoney.
The next speaker is Cindy March, Marvelous Washington, and Nora Mahoney.
Good evening, Council. This is utterly ridiculous. You all had 3 meetings, 3 workshops, or whatever you want to call it, on the 7th, the 9th, and the 13th with Randy and Evans. And it was so confusing because Randy said the water plant was going to cost $353 or $57 million, but he's shooting for $400 million. What you going to do with the other $43 million? It's enough already. Kashama, I looked at that meeting last night. Do you know the meaning of honesty or dishonesty? This man here, Evans, he knew about this water. That's why we're in a predicament. I'm not here to bash, and I don't care what the people say out there. We're hurting here in the city. I'm down for increasing the water bill. I'm down for, yes, we need a new water plant, but we need new leadership. We need some new leadership. We need new management. Because you all ran on clean water. Kashama, you ran on clean water your last election. You, Botel, and Evans got a glass holding back clean water in the city of Riviera Beach. So if you're going to be honest, start being honest with yourself. And Lanier, I keep elaborating on the word integrity. I understand you're dumbfounded, and I know the reason why. Enough already. A lot of stuff that you pronounced last night that took place, it was already in the making when the other boards was here. You all stopped people that had higher positions to bring Evans back into this city, to destroy this city. And I'm going to say this, I don't care who like it, because what I say once, I will say twice. Get this man a package and get rid of him. We have a man up here, Doug. This his third time was going to run for election because of the mystery woman. This man can't even run. And who do you blame? You blame Evans. Evans have overstepped his boundaries more than one time. More than one time. He interfered with everybody that's being hired in the city of Revere Beach. He cannot handle all of these positions, Lanier. So y'all keep praising this man because the vision is not ours. Because shit would take care of his own shit.
Thank you for your comments.
The next speaker is Marvelous Washington, Nora Mahoney, and Juanita Knowles.
Marvelous Washington, Lone Pine Estates. It's hard not to come up here and kind of smile and giggle about what's going on because it's frustrating because residents, it's not that we don't want to pay the increased rates. We understand that we need a new water plant. The problem is, and I can only speak for myself and what the sentiments of everybody else, we don't trust that you're going to do the right thing with the extra money we're giving you. Because when he come up and made the presentation in reference to the water plan and all the numbers that's up there, what he presented is totally different from what is in this brochure. The median price range of all of the bills that's in here, there are 5 added cities up there. And some of the cities are not comparable to Riviera Beach. So I don't understand how Broward County water bill can compare to Riviera Beach. And you can say to us that that makes sense, that we're paying more than the whole county of Broward. It makes no sense. In addition to that, the median range that was up on the presentation that's up there is the same in here, although he added 5 extra cities that had higher rates. The problem I have is when people come up here, they treat us like we're dumb. They treat us like we're not going to read the substance that they give us, but we read everything that they give us. And not only that, I just have a couple questions. Did anybody make any appropriation requests? Did anybody look into the wastewater revolving loan plan? Did anybody look into the drinking water revolving loan plan? Did anybody request any of that funding? Because what bothers me, you're asking us for these increases. And again, if Pinnell want to increase, our home insurance is increased. If you stay west of 95, it's increasing even more because guess what? You guys closed the fire station out there. So we're being penalized for what decisions that you guys have made, and you didn't have a replacement. We have the worst water quality west of 95. Our wells is not working out there. And let's be honest, we pay a lot in our taxes, okay? And we're not getting any benefit from it. So we don't mind the increases. It's what are you going to do with it? Can we trust that you're going to do with it? Since 2019, we have used Seacoast to flush our system to avoid the health department fining us. Okay, so when you guys say you didn't know anything about the employee changing the test results, this is how the department has been running. We've been changing test results since the beginning of time. Look it up. Look at the financial records. You'll see how much money we paid to Seacoast to flush the lines to avoid being fined by the health department. It's public records. So this has been going on since 2019. So when you come up here and say what you didn't know, I can't believe that. Last but not least, you guys say the water is safe to drink, and I'm going to point it out again. Every one of you guys have bottled water up there that we paid for. Thank you.
Nora Mahoney, Juanita Knowles, and Margaret Shepherd.
Hello again. 2120 Broadway and 2135 Broadway. You know, before the special district was formed, they lied to us. Consultant came and they persuaded everybody to form the special district of public utilities, that they were going to have a new plan, no problems, whatever. And everybody, I think there were probably 10 people, but we don't have no workshops, we don't have no input. They persuaded us to do that. So I was waiting for all these years to be having a new water plan. And also in the stipulation to say that whatever needs to be fixed, give us a warranty of many years so we can have it right. The other thing is the pipes. You know, I came to the meeting in 1999. Michael Brown, who was the mayor, He said he was going to talk to Solitron. The company name or subsidiary of this company was Honeywell. He said that he was going to fight to the EPA to clean the pipes that they were contaminated at that time. Well, the company is no longer here. And I would like to know if the pipes are going to be clean. Are we going to have new pipes? You're talking about 48,000 people. What about if you grow more than 48 because everybody's moving to Florida? So you're probably going to have 58, 60,000. You never know because you're building all over the place here in Florida. So you're going to be able to spend the money. Of course, you have to spend it. We all need to have good water. But the price is a little itchy. I would like to know again where the money was allocated for. They told us that they were going to build a new plant. And luckily, people didn't have the chance to see what happened many years ago because they didn't have no TV. But we were to all the meetings. Oh, the promises that they were going to have something new for the city. We love the city. And look at what happened. We have bad water. We don't want to be like Flint in Michigan, that everybody's going to have contamination in their bodies. I understand that you have to do the right thing. But if you're going to spend the money, you need to have the approval of the residents and the people here in the community. Because nobody can afford to spend a lot of money and be in debt for 12 years. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Juanita Knowles, Margaret Shepherd, and Lloyd Brown.
Good afternoon. I'm Juanita Knowles. My address is 2011 Avenue H East, Riviera Beach. I've lived here in Riviera Beach since 1969. We've raised our children here and our grandchildren here. What we want here in Riviera Beach is honesty from our persons who are making decisions on our lives every day. And if we can't get this honesty, we need to make some changes. I've always, and our families and our neighbors have always supported our councils, tried to do the best in reference to making sure our neighborhoods were done correctly. Working hard in our neighborhoods. We're in Park Manor, so my husband, he was president of the Park Manor Neighborhood Association for years, and tried to help the city to make it a better city. What we're not doing is, because of the honesty that's not here, I'm spending more money on water. We bathe in this water, we wash our clothes in this water, okay? We have to get up in the morning and wash our face and brush our teeth. I'm not doing it with the city water anymore. That means I'm spending more money on water, okay? Because we have to do it this way. And we want honesty from our citizens. And if most of us say we believe in this God that we praise, and he says we're supposed to be honest with each other and loving and kind to one another, then we need to be able to do this. And this is all we are asking. Break down this information that we just heard tonight. I mean, we're not mathematicians, and we're not the persons who are supposed to be able to break this information down for us. But we need to be able to have a report that's readable, okay, for our citizens to be able to read it and understand what's happening and what it's going to cost us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Margaret Shepherd, Lloyd Brown, Fane Lozman.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach. The first thing I want to say is you all need to take all these microphones, throw them in the trash, and get decent microphones. We're sitting in there, and the gentleman was talking. I understood nothing he said. He mumbled during the whole thing. And we need to have microphones when you go to the county commissioners, West Palm Beach. It's set up where you're talking to Mike. You never have to touch anything. I want to hear everything you take to say. I'm sorry. I'm not here to bash anybody. I want to say one thing to the public and those sitting here. I want you to take a good look at me because I have prophesied this board is going to change. We are sick of them. They came in here and told us they're going to get the water together and what, don't say nothing. My kids will tell you, I hate a liar. Don't start saying something that's not true. I have a set of twins. And when I asked them, well, who did this? They start pointing at one another. And I'm like, well, who did it? And I want to say, who did it? I really don't care. I have nothing in my heart against nobody. But you're saying drink the water. You could drink it. You can come to my house and fill up a couple of jugs. I really don't care because I have to buy the water. And I think I say it again, sandbags, they were good. I should have got some. But I think that like Michael Brown, he brought in a couple of truckloads of water and ice for us. This city is, and it's just dying because we don't tell the truth. We put people in office, and the next thing we become the enemy. They make us feel like we're the enemy. I'm not your enemy. I put you there. I made sure, but a time is coming. I want you all to understand one thing. A change is going to be a blowing of the wind because we have to get you out those seats to make sure this city is safe. We're not safe. The water is yellow, and you say, oh, God, you're a fool to sit up there and just shut up. Just shut the hell up. You know that water is no good. You know in your heart that water is no good, and you're covering up. Who's in charge of it? I have no idea. I'm not blaming nobody. But if you have people that's at the utility department that's incompetent, they should have been gone a long time ago. And I'll say this, and then I'm through. A lot of y'all need to get the hell up out of here. I'm so sick of you. Oh, we built this. And, oh, we built that. We built. Who cares what you built? That's your job. $19,000 a year, that's your job. And I hope you know one thing. Live good. Live good. Because your job is about to end. It's going to be a new day in Riviera Beach.
Lloyd Brown, Fane Lozman, Scott Lewis.
How you doing? I don't have to introduce myself, do I? You know what? I know the water, if it goes up, I'll just stop taking baths every day. And that ain't the only thing. That's just a joke. But you know what? If the bill go up and it's going to help with the water, I agree with it. Because when you're in Rome, you pay what the Romans ask you to pay. But I mean, if you're just going to come here and every time somebody get up here and they talk about how we can improve this, you ask them 1,000 questions. And then we got way more problems, and I'll tell you like this. I'm in with Martin Luther King. Y'all might not understand why I'm bringing this up, but I see crowds and crowds of people at those Martin Luther King parades. Over here, I don't see none of them. And they sitting right there and they see the city going down. Okay, who's gonna complain about the high price of the gas we got? $3.49 right in the middle of the neighborhood. But nobody's saying nothing. You worried about the water going up. I mean, a lot of black people I know, they sit on them corners and they spend more money in them damn stores than they pay on their water bill, but they don't complain about the prices in these stores. See, something that you can change right now, y'all don't give a damn about it. And the water you need to change, you still don't give a damn about it. And I mean, you could sit back here and look like, please, it's a shame. I mean, the lady say she was here. Well, I was born in 1954, right there where I live at right now. And it used to be you could go outside when I was coming up in high school and you could drink the water right out of the hose. Oh, it tastes so good. Now, for somebody to come in here and raise the bill to get the water straight, it's going to hurt a lot of people. I know it is. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But you got many of these black people I know in the neighborhood, they go to the Martin Luther King, like I say, parades, and they sit in front of them stores every day, and they spending like $2 more for bread that these people done bought from Walmart and brought to the stank store. But y'all don't say nothing about that. Honestly, I mean, little things that you could change, mayor, you can change. You could walk in them stores. Let me be the mayor when you get out of here. I'll walk in every damn store it is and look at the stuff they got and say something about it because I can make a difference there. With this water, you got to work with it. It's going to take time. Do things that you can do. Unemployment is rising. I mean, crime is rising. Black kids dropping out of school in our neighborhood. And here it is. I mean, now you want to talk about increase the water now. Should have been increased way back then when they had the problem. It may not have cost. Just think. A pair of Converse when I was coming up cost $13. Now they cost like $64. So if you'd have done that water plant when these shoes were $13, we'd be okay. But y'all so stupid.
Fane Lozman, Scott Lewis, Bessie Brown.
Fane Lozman, Singer Island. As utility board members, you do not have the authority to delay the start of a city council meeting. This is the secondary board. City council starts at 6 o'clock. If this is going to run long, then you set it for another time. You've disenfranchised elderly members of this community who came here tonight and couldn't take it anymore and left. Is that what you want to do? These elderly ladies got dressed up to come here, sat here for an hour and 20 minutes and walked out. The majority of the members in this audience came for the city council meeting. City council meeting starts at 6 o'clock. What time is it now? It's 7:35. That is shameful. Adjourn this meeting and start it up another day, but you cannot, as sitting as utility board members, you cannot delay the start of a scheduled city council meeting. And this, Mayor, maybe you can speak up and give this board some common sense.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk?
Scott Lewis, Bessie Brown, Lynn Hubbard. I don't know. I don't think so.
I asked to have slide 23 brought up. This is a lesson in smoke and mirrors. That's what concerns me, which goes to the honesty question. You know, I want you to, this chart, she's not putting it up, but we were the fourth highest in Southeast Florida, I think, although I just heard about the 5 others that got added since the pamphlet was made. And there's a reason they're doing that. It only shows 1-year increase. But everything earlier was talking about 5 years. Put the chart up there, slide a little bit left, and you're going to see what it looks like in 5 years. Riviera Beach is off the chart. Please look harder at the cost of the plant, which is the bond. I asked the specialist last week. The most recent plant in Palm Beach County is Seacoast, about 10 years ago, $60 million. This one is 600% more. Now, I don't know what kind of inflation that is in 10 years, but my business didn't have it. My income, everybody here, nobody got 600%. Look at the cost, hammer the cost. It's way too much. I don't know what they're doing, but if there's saunas and other sun deck stuff in this, like at the fire stations you built, the most expensive in Palm Beach County out of 80. All right, that's what you're doing. What's happening that's worrying me the most is, and thank God that I'm going to be able to afford these bills, the water bills. But there's a lot of people on fixed income. You people, in 5 years, all of you are going to be gone. But you are condemning future senior citizens that live here now on fixed incomes, because it isn't just 147% increase because you're compounding your interest. Don't forget about all the other bonds that other council passes, because those are all taxes on your residents too. You are going to force residents out of their homes with what you're doing. So I do not support what's going on. I don't want to support something that's forcing people out, and that's where this is headed. And that is a crime, right? You shouldn't do that. Stop it. Force them to cut costs. It's capable of doing. We can do it. We have to do it sometimes in our homes. Everybody does. You all need to do it. Act like leaders. Order them to do things. All right? Please protect your residents, because you failed. over the last couple years with the crap in our drinking water.
Thank you for your comments.
Lynn Hubbard and JB Dixon. Bessie Brown.
Is Ms. Brown here?
Lynn
Oh,
Hubbard,
there she
JB Dixon, Doretta Paul. Oh, there's Bessie.
Good evening, Bessie Brown. This has been going on for quite a while. This was one of the reasons why Ruth Jones was fired. But the water hadn't actually, we hadn't actually had the fecal stuff, coli stuff in the water. But, and anytime somebody in here said they didn't know about it, they should be gone. They should be gone because we've all known about it for about 5 or 6 years. And so if you're working here and you don't know about it, then you don't need to be here. It just doesn't make any sense that we work here and we can't get any decent water. And every time the water has to go up, Mr. Randy Sherman adds on, he takes this out, he adds this on, and all of this stuff, and he tells us this is what needs to be done. But we don't see, but nothing good is happening. Nothing good is happening. Now, we need to really get somebody here that's going to do his job too. Because this is just totally ridiculous that we sit here. And then the people in Park Manor, they had the worst water, all color water, all kind of water. And then now I don't hear them talking. So you're going to support someone that's not doing their job? Just to say we have this, we don't have anything. This is just totally ridiculous. And every time, every time we're gonna do this and we're gonna take care of the water, and the water hasn't been taken care of yet. It's getting worse, and now we're up to $1 million in fines and stuff now. I think that you all need to really get that information, all that information from Randy Sherman and the people that came in with the information about the water. And we really need to sit down and understand what is happening. We really need to sit down and understand what is happening instead of somebody say, well, I don't know, I'm here, but I don't know. Well, then if you don't know, you sit to the side, and when we're done, we'll take care of you. Because this is ridiculous.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
The next speaker is JB Dixon.
Lynn Hubbard, then JB Dixon.
I'm sorry, Lynn Hubbard,
Thank you.
JB Dixon, and then Doretta Paul.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Hubbard.
Thank you. Okay. $400 million is a lot of money. That's a lot of money for us to pay for water on the median incomes that are here in Riviera Beach. The biggest problem is the only income that we have to pay for debt is our water, and that's what we're using. We're using it, one, because we don't have any economic development, nothing's being built. We have taken every piece of property that we can make money off of the tax rolls. We have put items on Blue Heron that cannot generate any income for us. We should be building things on land that can generate income for us so that everything we need to do for this city don't have to be on the backs of the residents. The only thing that we can pay debt with is our water bill, and that's unfair because that's not good business, that's not good management. There's nothing we are doing here that would generate income for the city of Riviera Beach. So what we do in return, we put everything on the backs of the residents. We said that there was 43 $1 million bond that was already out there. Then I heard of tonight, I heard that it was rolled into the 356 that we are talking about paying. At the presentation the other night, that was not the case, that we were still paying on that. Also, another problem that we have, or that I have with the $400 million is this. It is not going to solve all of our problems. I understand that what we need is another pump that's midway Riviera Beach, I would say Congress, I-95 area, to bring the water up to the level that it needs to be for the residents in Woodbine. So you're going to tell me we getting ready to spend $400 million and it's not solving the problems of Riviera Beach. You're going to come back to us and tell us that we need to raise another bond. We need to throw some more money after this same problem. That's why I don't think that we have a good or a fair price for what we're getting. We're not even getting what we need or deserve for the $400 million that we're getting ready to spend. There's not any underground piping that's going to be done. We talked about 6 wells are going to be built and that we're in the process of rehabbing wells that are already in the city. So you're building 6 wells. There's supposed to be 2 over here on the west side and 4 to 6 on Singer Island. But be that as it may, what will that do to make sure that the filtration of the water is better once it reaches our homes? You're welcome. But $400 million for this project, Mr. Chair, this is too much for what you know that we make here in the city of Riviera Beach. We need more income.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard.
J.B. Dixon, Doretta Paul, and our last speaker is Lady Goldwire.
Welcome, Ms. Dixon.
Hello, J.B. Dixon, Singer Island and Riviera Beach. It's amazing to me when I hear all of the experts in this room get up and tell how we should solve all the problems of the world when most of us don't even listen to our paid consultants and spend most of these meetings talking among themselves. And then they say, we don't know about these things. What about this? Have you tried that? All of the things I've heard tonight have been discussed, have been decided in previous meetings. So if you're not paying attention, and you're not even paying attention tonight because you're yakking to each other, then you're never going to know, because you can't just get up here and ask questions about things that were decided years ago. I bought property in this city in 1978. And if you think this is a bad city council, you have absolutely no idea about what a bad city council is. And those bad city councils got us into the position that we're in. This council is definitely not perfect. And I think that when the next election, some people will be gone. But I think I know we have come a long way since 1978 and those old councils. And I would urge people who are voting, who are going to vote, instead of just complaining, get out there and vote and work for candidates that you really know are going to be good for this city. Don't sit on your hands, don't sit on your wallets. Get involved in the political process. The minimum you should do is vote. You should be out there working for candidates who you think anyway will be better than the ones you have. But this is not a bad council compared to the councils that have come before it. And it is those councils who have created this problem. And now there are still people getting up saying, can't we have a cheaper water facility? No, because that's exactly what previous councils did. Was let's not spend the money, let's be heroes to the citizens. This water plant is going to have to serve this city for a very long time. We can't take the cheapest option we have in order to look good and curry favor with residents who would rather complain than do anything. It is often said in almost every profession that it is easier to be a critic than a creator. So you will notice that most of the critics have no creative solutions to offer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Doretta Polk, Lady Goldwire.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Park, and I'm a resident of this city of Riviera Beach. I've lived here all my life, and I'm a senior citizen. I'm a widow, and it is very difficult to have to pay this price, but we have to pay it. We all have to just buckle up our belts, and we have to. This has gone on for decades before this council even sat on its dais. So this is what we're faced with because of the neglect of the past decades of the councils. Last night I attended a meeting here of the OIG inspector, and I wish people would have been out to hear the report that he stated. The OIG stated, the director stated, and also the attorneys stated that they looked at hundreds of emails and they interviewed a large amount of employees. And what they found was the mismanagement and the E. coli and also the falsifying of the records and not reporting to the state health department was caused by the leadership of Mr. Lowe. They said determined also that they investigated to see if Mr. Evans or Mrs. Deirdre Jacobs had any knowledge of this, and they absolutely did not. None of the employees, not Mr. Lowe, Mr. Doyle, stated they knew of this. We had a employee even come to the diocese that works over the utility department and stated that Mr. Lowe gave him directions to not even have Miss Jacobs on any emails. Do not tell her what the daily working of the utility. So, when you don't know and you entrust people to do the right thing, be honest, to take care of the citizens. This is what has gotten us into this situation, citizens. This is what has gotten us into this situation. Not Mr. Evans, not Deirdre, and we just have to take care of each other and be kind to one another. And I thank you.
Ms. Polk.
Lady Goldwire. Thank you.
Good evening, Lady Goldwire. The first thing that I want to point out is I was contacted by a dear friend, longtime resident here in the city, and she's indicated that their water meters have been abandoned 12 years ago. And as a result, they were not incurring charges, or so they thought. They were hit with a bill of $16,000 and a demand for payment. The meter had been removed. They are no longer in the house, and it was baffling to them how they got a $16,000 bill. In looking at it, the understanding was, again, it was $150 maintenance fees. But we are clear, based on all the conversation and comments today, that you aren't maintaining the lines. The lines are the problem. I think for somebody who is also a widower by themselves, getting a bill 12 years later in the amount of $16,000 is a bit out of order. And I won't share the address publicly, but would ask that someone would look into that because I don't think any of us could or would be appreciative of getting hit with such news. The other thing I wanted to recommend was we still have a dinosaur of former employees, long-term utility individuals that have a broad understanding of what the utility situation was when it was bad and decided that we needed to replace the lines. They're still living. There is a lot of shooting blanks in the dark here in the city in terms of how we get to a point of redemption. And without consulting the people with vault knowledge before they die off, I think you do the residents a grave injustice. That having been said, I'm curious as to why now we have to make a decision when in 6 weeks the board is going to change. I think since the board is going to probably change, that it should probably be incumbent upon that board to make decisions relative to what the future looks like with these increases. Give them an opportunity to review what the ask is, since they will ultimately be inheriting your decision. I think Scott, when he came up here, said it the most eloquently. You're making decisions today, and the outcome of those decisions are going to be pinned on the backs of our children and our children's children, not to make and take into consideration all of the other taxations that come down. The last thing I will say is there's always a lot of commentary about new construction and new development. We have new development in the city, but I want you guys to be clear that infrastructure like fire stations and police stations are not new development, especially when they don't contribute to the tax base. That's just what you're supposed to be doing with our money.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comment.
Thank you. Residents, we will have city council and we will start public comment immediately as soon as the city council meeting starts. We have 2 more items on the utility district meeting and then we'll go right into city council. Madam Clerk, 8.
We are on resolution number 4-25UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to issue a work order in an amount not to exceed a guaranteed maximum price of $23,695,058.17 to the Haskell CDM Smith joint venture for the GMP number 3 balance of FAS Water Supply Wells Project, contingent upon the board approving a resolution accepting the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District 2024 Water and Wastewater Utility Revenue Sufficiency and Rate Report, adopting revised rates, fees, and charges for water and wastewater utility services, authorizing the Utility Special District Finance Director to make payments from project account number 23039 in an amount not to exceed $23,695,058.17, contingent upon the board approving a resolution accepting the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District 2024 Water and Wastewater Utility Revenue Sufficiency and Rate Report, adopting revised rates, fees, and charges for water and wastewater utility services, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have public comment on this item. The acceptance of the public comment cards is closed.
So moved.
Motion's been made, properly seconded. Ms. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I would ask that our representatives from CDM Smith and Haskell to make this presentation concerning Resolution 4-25, the GMP for the additional 4 wells.
Thank you, board. I'll make this quick tonight because I know you got a long agenda after this. So I'm Michael Hoisington. I'm the project manager for the JV. I also have Suzanne Meckler behind me. She'll be assisting me if there are any questions I'm unable to answer. So I'm gonna get into this real quick. So we are seeking the approval for the balance of the well GMP. We previously brought this last year. It was unable to be funded because the bonds had expired. However, with the resolution that was passed previously to allow the rate increase, we bring the balance of the well GMP to Riviera to be approved to be able to proceed with the production for the drilling of the production wells for the new water treatment plant. So I got the current schedule up there. It's planned to follow the previous well GMP that was approved in November by the board. So as those wells are being finished up, they will transition over to the balance of the other 4 wells that this project is entailed to complete. So as you see, we continued to utilize the same bidders that bid the previous well package. They were able to hold their pricing, and with the pricings that we were able to go out, 42% of that pricing is going to be stay here local with either minority businesses or local businesses for the project. So again, trying to make it quick and efficient. Any questions or comments that I can answer related to the well GMP?
We've had this conversation. I didn't have any questions. Board? Madam Clerk, roll call. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, public comment cards.
Mr. Chair, we have 2 public comment cards. The first speaker is Erica Davis, followed by Mrs. Mary Bram.
Good evening, Board. Happy New Year. I think you guys should go ahead on and vote on this, move forward with it. I mean, we've heard all of these comments this evening, but business is business. We've delayed this since 2020. It's now 2025. Let's move on it. The later you do it and delay it, the more it's going to cost. Just remember, January 20th starts a new president of the United States. We're talking about tariffs on goods and services. So therefore, everything's going up and nothing's going to go down. So you guys need to start thinking about that and business and handling business properly. Delay means costly. And you all need to do a letter and an itemized bonding bill of all the construction and things in this city so the residents can understand in layman terms what takes place and how the government works with pricing on our government buildings and who pay for them and what type of grants and funding that you can get extra to break down those costs. They need to know these things because apparently a lot of them do not come to the meetings. They don't watch them on. A lot of people don't have cable. So they need to know what's going on. And you all, it's election time and we're so sick of hearing about the water. You need to explain to the residents that you are working on it. You need to explain to the residents that this $23 million is going towards the wells to keep the water safe until you build the new plant. So they need to understand that. Stop playing around, bull-essing with election. Open your mouths and explain to the residents. Your representatives, act like it if you want to get back in here because we're sick and tired of this game.
The next speaker is Mrs. Mary Bram.
It's Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. On last night, I said that the new year, I have 2 quotes here that I'm going to hold dearly throughout 2025. In order to be irreplaceable, you must be different. Coco Chanel. And the other one is, do what is right, not what is easy. That's just what is happening here. When we talk about the well, see, Miss Bram is so over-consumed. I've been to meetings. This year, last year, year before last, year before that. You looking at her right here. So it's nothing in this city here that Miss Bram does not know. Not just this city, outside and everywhere else. How we move is predicated on your leadership here. Sometimes you have to tune these things out. You can take it in, but don't let it consume you. especially when you know that you are living in a city that's not comprised just of you. And we constantly talk about how, how, and money. Nothing is going to fall out the sky. We have to make it work to build this beautiful utility district here. This is the one here that we chose because we workshop. This is what we did. And sorry that you all did not feel the need to want to come or did not participate. But tonight we're here. We're here to dialogue it. But what about the ones that did sacrifice all of their time and energy to come out and stay engaged in the business at hand? This is what matters. Sure, we're going to always have oppositions. We wouldn't be human if we did not. But we have to respect each other. We have to look at each other in their places. And we also have to do the things that not what we want to do, but what we must do. Because those things are the necessities. And we talk about Mr. Evans, the OIG report, investigators was here last night. They went through all of that. And you know what some of those employees did to you? Let Ms. Graham tell you. Deliberately did that to you. Deliberately. And they will be prosecuted to the fullest. That's what they did to this city here. And to get back at we as residents and everybody here.
Thank you for your comments, Ms.
And
Graham.
that's what happens. Do those ways.
Ms. Graham, thank you for your comments.
And let's move.
Roll comment.
Board Member Lanier. Vice Chair McCoy. Board Member Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus.
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That item passes with Vice Chair McCoy out.
Thank you. 8A.
Item 8A is workshop discussion and deliberation. Discussing capital improvement charges, impact fees, and utility special district to update the water system and wastewater system capital impact fees.
Good evening again, Randy Sherman, District Finance Director. I know you're all familiar with the capital impact fee concept, and we will try to move this along and not get too tied up in that. But if you recall, we have engaged again, Mr. Rob Ori has done a capital impact fee study. He's recommending new rates. Under the state statute, you're required to phase those in unless you can show extraordinary circumstances. And that allows you, if you can show those circumstances, it allows you to just go straight to the new rates and not have the fades in process. So Mr. Orr is here tonight to present his findings and why he believes that the district should go to the maximum rates. How far do you want to go?
Just go to page 1. I'll move it real quick.
Okay.
And Mr. Ori also, Mr. Ori? Thank you, sir. If you could be mindful, we do have another meeting
Yeah, I'm
tonight.
going to go real quick
Thank you,
for
sir.
you. So, as Randy mentioned, the capital improvement charge or impact fees are fees charged in new development for the cost of capacity allocated in new development. These are not fees charged to existing customers, but the fees that are paid by the new development benefits the existing customer by the fact there's financial resources sitting there. It's been since 2019 that the rates, the fees.
And if you could
were-
talk into the mic, I'm sorry, Mr. Ori.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's been over 5 years since the last fees are looked at pre-COVID, and there's various components to those fees. I'm just going to go right to the recommendations here.
Thank you.
Because of the magnitude of the water treatment plant, we're recommending that the capital improvement charges or impact fees, which are currently for water at $2,000 $110 for equivalent residential connection, which is typical of a single-family household, go from $2,000 to over $8,000. It's a very substantial increase. We have a very substantial project. And the wastewater, a minor adjustment from $1,830 for ERC to $1,904. There's not been a lot of movement there in terms of the overall capital cost like there has in the water. If you look at the comparison there, that will put you at the higher end of the fees being charged in this region. And part of the reason is, because of that, is you're building a brand new plant on a brand new site with brand new wells at a cost of $30 a gallon, when I mentioned earlier it was $5 a gallon. If you assume, let me see where that is, hold on. If you assume, give me one more second here. When you recognize that cost differential and the level of service at 280 gallons per equivalent residential unit per day, that difference alone is $6,400 in the fee cost. And we're recommending that you go to the full fee. Now, Randy mentioned, I'm kind of go quick here. Randy mentioned that the Florida Impact Fee Act requires that if the fee is over 25%, under 50% of the current fee, you have to phase it in for 4 years. But there's an extraordinary provision in that fee, in the act, that allows you to implement early. And if you think about it, yes, the water fee is over 50% greater than the existing fee. But this water treatment plant has reached its useful life. It's beyond its useful life, number one. It must fully be replaced, not partially. We're not adding a new treatment train or a tank. We're adding a plant, number one. You have no ability to blend historical costs, that existing plant with the new plant to get an average rate per new capacity. This is all brand new at $25, $30 a gallon that you see on this chart here. And also we're issuing debt to finance this plant, which is a pledge to the repayment of this plant, and to understate the value of those charges would put that repayment incentive onto the existing ratepayers. And the goal is, and the right thing to do, is to put it up to who's responsible for these charges. So all expansion-related costs should be borne by the expansion-related development that's coming in for the benefit of the whole system. So we strongly believe that you have an extraordinary condition and should be able to implement these rates, these fees for the new development at their full amount for the water side. Wastewater, I would phase in over 2 years. It's minor compared to the water. And that's our recommendation. You have to have 2 hearings for this extraordinary decision. And once you approve if you approve these fees, you have to give notice 90 days prior to implementation because of the act. But I just wanted to mention that the fees are going up significantly. I'll also tell you, if for every 1,000 new ERCs that come on, you're talking $6 million of additional funds coming in that would offset those debt service payments that we talked about earlier. This is one of the avenues we have to try to reduce the long-term debt for the benefit of the customers. And that's my presentation very quickly.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Evans, you're not looking for any act?
Can I step? I'm sorry. I want to say one other thing. I forgot. I apologize. Can I jump in real quick? One more thing?
Of course.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I just wanted there's been talk about, rate comparisons and all, but this chart is kind of hard to see because South Florida, there's not a lot of new plants being built. Fort Lauderdale's one, but there's a lot of development in Central Florida and the west coast of Florida. And we're seeing those utilities that are in the current stages of expansion or construction their fees are rising considerably. And this is just a chart kind of showing you what other fees have done. It's in your package. The water fee for Riviera Beach would be the highest, but you can see on here $13,000 for ERC for water and sewer. That used to be $4,000 to $5,000. So this is not only a local issue, but a statewide issue and probably a national issue as well. But I just wanted to point that out. And that, Chairman, I'll turn it back to you. I just wanted to point that out, that information was there for you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Question from the board? Thank you, and thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for your presentations. We
Thank you
really
very
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you. Discussion by Executive Director?
Chair.
District Attorney?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Statements from the board, starting with the mayor.
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Lanier? Board Member Spiritus?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just want everyone here to understand that the glass is half full, it's not half empty. The mayor and I did go to Washington and meet with our congressional members. We met with EPA staff. We've done that 2 times. Staff has met with EPA. EPA is excited about working with us and helping us fund the project. We will be putting in, I think we have an application already ready for the SRF money. Is that correct, Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognized?
Yes.
So we expect to be able to move forward, and we hope to have this plant operating in the end of 2027, and we'll have brand new clean water, and we'll have new wells, and we'll be working on the transmission lines. So yes, we've made a lot of progress recently, and I think we have to look at it that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train coming, it is real light, and we are going to see good things in this city in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Miller Anderson?
No.
Thank you. Residents, we will be starting our city council meeting in about 10 minutes, and we will go straight into public comments. So any residents that do have public comments will be starting immediately as soon as the meeting gets started. With no further business, meeting's adjourned.